Shalom and welcome to Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker. Revealing the Truth is broadcast live via the internet each Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. from our own television studios right here in Birmingham, Alabama. Our program is the media branch of Igniting a Nation Incorporated, a 501c3 ministry devoted to reaching the church with the truth of the Bible from a Jewish believer's perspective. We are a commercial-free network 100% supported by your donations. We are committed to bringing a bold voice to a wide variety of topics presented from a biblical worldview. The live broadcast will be televised via our website at ianbn.com and archived on our YouTube channel. You can follow us, Igniting a Nation, on Facebook and Twitter for the latest show updates and daily guests. Send us your comments at info@ignitinganation.com. And now for today's rant. If only the CDC would cover it, or maybe the World Health Organization, but no, not one of them has reported on the epidemic sweeping the world. Not CNN, Fox, or USA Today. No, not one reporter has covered it. In fact, it hasn't been reported on in almost 2,000 years, and the toll it is taking is astronomical. Every day of every week, of every month, of every year, someone falls victim. It is an epidemic of biblical proportion, and unless we are on the alert, it can happen here. Here are just a few of the symptoms: change in diet, confusion, loss of identity, confusion, and oftentimes more confusion that is contagious. This malady does not discriminate, and most oftentimes the carrier has no idea that they are even infected. The malady is spiritual pride in the form of legalism. It takes the form of people telling one another that there's a right way and a wrong way and an only way to live their lives in the Lord. It is the behavior of the Pharisees, and it is condemning, not convicting. It is judgmental and prideful and has no basis in the Bible. It robs a person of their liberty and pits one believer against another. It causes division and is a malady that erodes the very foundation of faith. It is the reason why there are 38,000 denominations of Christianity in the world today. Galatians 5 says, "It is for freedom that Messiah has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." James 1:22 through 27 says, "Do not merely listen to the word, and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like a man who looks at his face in a mirror, and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But the man who looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues to do this, not forgetting what he has heard, but doing it, he will be blessed in what he does. If anyone considers himself religious and yet does not keep a tight rein on his tongue, he deceives himself, and his religion is worthless." Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. It's not about what you eat or don't eat. It's not about what you wear or do not wear. It's not about when or where you worship. It's about a relationship with the Lord and with each other. Jesus spoke these words. We read in Luke 11:37 through 52. When Jesus, Yeshua, had finished speaking, a Pharisee invited him to eat with him. So he went in and reclined at the table. But the Pharisee, noting that Yeshua did not first wash before the meal, was surprised. Then the Lord said to him, "Now then, you Pharisees clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness. You foolish people, did not the one who made the outside make the inside also? But give what is inside to the poor, and everything will be clean for you. Woe to you Pharisees, because you give a tenth of your mint, rue, and all other kinds of garden herbs, but you neglect justice and the love of God. You should have practiced the latter without leaving the former undone. Woe to you Pharisees, because you love the most important seats in the synagogue and greetings in the marketplaces. Woe to you, because you are like unmarked graves, which men walk over without knowing it." One of the experts in the law answered him, "Teacher, when you say these things, you insult us also." And Jesus replied, And you experts in the law, woe to you, because you load people down with burdens they can hardly carry, and you yourself will not lift one finger to help them. Woe to you, because you build tombs for the prophets, and it was your forefathers who killed them. So you testify that you approve of what your forefathers did. They killed the prophets, and you build their tombs. Because of this, God in his wisdom said, I will send them prophets and apostles, some of whom they will kill, and others they will persecute. Therefore, this generation will be held responsible for the blood of all the prophets that has been shed since the beginning of the world, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who was killed between the altar and the sanctuary. Yes, I tell you, this generation will be held responsible for it all. Woe to you, experts in the law, because you have taken away the key to knowledge. You yourselves have not entered, and you have hindered those who were entering. Romans 2, Paul writes, You therefore have no excuse, you who pass judgment on someone else. For at whatever point you judge the other, you are condemning yourself, because you who pass judgment do the same things. Now we know that God's judgment against those who do such things is based on truth. So when you, a mere man, pass judgment on them and yet do the same things, do you think you will escape God's judgment? Or do you show contempt for the riches of his kindness, tolerance, and patience, not realizing that God's kindness leads you toward repentance? But because of your stubbornness and your unrepentant heart, you are storing up wrath against yourself for the day of God's wrath, when his righteous judgment will be revealed. God will give to each person according to what he has done. To those who by persistence in doing good seek glory, honor, and immortality, he will give eternal life. But for those who are self-seeking and who reject the truth and follow evil, there will be wrath and anger. There will be trouble and distress for every human being who does evil, first for the Jew, then for the Gentile. But glory, honor, and peace for everyone who does good, first for the Jew, then for the Gentile. For God does not show favoritism. All who sin apart from the law will also perish apart from the law, and all who sin under the law will be judged by the law. For it is not those who hear the law who are righteous in God's sight, but it is those who obey the law who will be declared righteous. Indeed, when Gentiles, who do not have the law, do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law, since they show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences also bearing witness, and their thoughts now accusing, now even defending them. This will take place on the day when God will judge men's secrets through Messiah Yeshua, as my gospel declares. Now you, if you call yourself a Jew, if you rely on the law and brag about your relationship to God, if you know his will and approve of what is superior because you are instructed by the law, if you are convinced that you are a guide for the blind, a light for those who are in the dark, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of infants, because you have in the law the embodiment of knowledge and truth, you then, who teach others, do you not teach yourself? You who preach against stealing, do you steal? You who say that people should not commit adultery, do you commit adultery? You who abhor idols, do you rob temples? You who brag about the law, do you dishonor God by breaking the law? As it is written, God's name is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. Circumcision has value if you observe the law, but if you break the law, you have become as though you had not been circumcised. If those who are not circumcised keep the law's requirements, will they not be regarded as though they were circumcised? The one who is not circumcised physically and yet obeys the law will condemn you who, even though you have the written code and circumcision are a lawbreaker. A man is not a Jew if he is only one outwardly, nor is circumcision merely outward and physical. No, a man is a Jew if he is one inwardly, and circumcision is circumcision of the heart, by the Spirit, not by the written code. Such a man's praises is not from men, but from God. Colossians 2:16-23 says, "Therefore do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink, or with regard to a religious festival, a new moon celebration, or a Sabbath day. These are a shadow of the things that were to come. The reality, however, is found in Messiah. Do not let anyone who delights in false humility and the worship of angels disqualify you for the prize. Such a person goes into great detail about what he has seen, and his unspiritual mind puffs him up with idle notions. He has lost connection with the head, from whom the whole body, supported and held together by its ligaments and sinews, grows as God causes it to grow. Since you died with Messiah to the basic principles of this world, why, as though you still belong to it, do you submit to its rules? Do not handle, do not taste, do not touch. These are all destined to perish with use because they are based on human commands and teachings. Such regulations indeed have an appearance of wisdom, with their self-imposed worship, their false humility, and their harsh treatment of the body, but they lack any value in restraining sensual indulgence. Paul writes to the Corinthians in 1 Corinthians 7:17-24, "This is the rule I lay down in all the congregations. Was a man already circumcised when he was called? He should not become uncircumcised. Was a man circumcised? He should remain circumcised. Circumcision is nothing and uncircumcision is nothing. Keeping God's commands is what counts. Each one should remain in the situation when he was in when God called him. Were you a slave when you were called? Don't let it trouble you, although if you can gain your freedom, do so. For he who was a slave when he was called by the Lord is the Lord's freedman. Similarly, he who was a free man when he was called is Messiah's slave. You were bought at a price. Do not become slaves of men. Brothers, each man, as responsible to God, should remain in the situation God called him to. Now about food sacrificed to idols, we know that we all possess knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. The man who thinks he knows something does not yet know as he ought to know. But the man who loves God is known by God. So then about eating food sacrificed to idols, we know that an idol is nothing at all in the world and that there is no God but one. For even if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is but one God, the Father, from whom all things came, and for whom we live. And there is but one Lord, Messiah Yeshua, through whom all things came, and through whom we live. But not everyone knows this. Some people are still accustomed to idols, that then when they eat such food, they think of it as having been sacrificed to an idol. And since their conscience is weak, it is defiled. But food does not bring us near to God. We are no worse if we do not eat, and no better if we do. Be careful, however, that the exercise of your freedom does not become a stumbling block to the weak. For if anyone with a weak conscience sees you who have this knowledge eating in an idol's temple, won't he be emboldened to eat what has been sacrificed to idols? So this weaker brother, for whom Messiah died, is destroyed by your knowledge. When you sin against your brothers in this way and wound their weak conscience, you sin against Messiah. Therefore, if what I eat causes my brother to fall into sin, I will never eat meat again, so that I will not cause him to fall. We must all be aware that the curse of the law was death, and that the law in itself was not a curse. Pride comes before the fall, a haughty spirit before destruction. Let us examine ourselves and see if we are lording over one another and exerting spiritual pride, a malady undiagnosed by the medical community, but seen by God and your fellow man. And that today, my friends, is the Rabbi's Rant for today. We welcome your comments. Email me, info@ignitinganation.com. If you enjoy the Rabbi's Rant, many times they are harvested from our teaching archives that can be found at inbn.com, ignitinganation.com. Click on the teaching archives, sign up, subscribe, and have access to 10 years worth of teachings, videos, and audio tapes. We'll be right back.